Well, now we're going to take a look at what I like to call plein air flowers, and that's creating your floral works outside and in the outdoor setting. And you're sort of surrounded by the natural environment, which will give you visual cues as to how nature is presented naturally versus how we present nature through our process of floral arranging. And that talks to our relationship with nature. Remember, we're always talking about our relationship and how we relate to the natural world, which is the source of what we do and what we create with, and with the sort of impact we want to have on those individuals who receive our works and what that impact is. And so here we are in plein air, outside, and this is something that I've been doing for many years, especially through COVID, trying to capture lines that I'm creating with natural materials like these gladiolas, the hyperlocal, from a nearby source and farm, and also trying to reference their place in the setting that we're creating in. How do you do that with an uber mod 50s mid-century modern glass compote? Well, I chose Ocean Pouch here for its ability to not only recede in the design, which the color black will always do that, it'll always recede, but also to become an integral part of the work at the same time, meaning I'm responding to my modern vessel, which is an abstracted form of, let's say, an old gourd water bucket that would be a source for supporting water. I'm using an uber modern mechanic that I can use to reinforce my sort of expression with these very bold and graphic components in this design work. So here you see me taking a good look at the materials themselves and how they're going to fit in relationship to each other in the vessel. And at the same time, how can I work with these materials? Sometimes it means removing part of them in order to get the impact that I want to do. And we'll talk with what I do with those unused materials in our next chapter. But for now, I'm just looking and I'm trying to see what it is I'm trying to explain and introducing fresh from the garden northern sea oats and how they dance. I thought, well, that's the levity I need and the air I need to reference the breeze and to reference the grasses, which right now are in season here in New England. The grasses are an amazing family and group of plants that have many purposes, and most importantly, they help with the stabilization of the soils and for runoff issues, which I think nowadays we need to start considering in how we live with the natural world and respond to the changing environmental conditions, such as violent storms and so forth. And my property in particular, where I'm standing in this demonstration, usually would end up after a big storm being sort of ripple lines filled with whatever light materials were carried along by the heavy rains downhill and deposited right at my feet. And I realized I needed to have sort of a permeable surface that would capture and slow down the natural rhythm of the rains that were, I can't avoid them with my geography. So I have to look and see what the conditions are and know what materials will not only be functional for my business and for my design work, but also for the environment itself. And these grasses are fitting the bill quite nicely. I'm even using them in planters and watching the 4 seasons of the plant in antique garden urns as just a plop in there, very simply placed, maybe with some agar wool chunks underneath and more reused pouches for some extra materials for growing in the growing season. But right now we are looking at autumn, and we're seeing the grasses they're going to be highlighted now as we enter the harvest season. The harvest season is that in-between period that isn't celebrated quite enough anymore. It really signals the end of the growing season and how we work with nature and what nature provides, combined with our own farming techniques. Regenerative agricultural techniques are always a good thing to consider for that circular system. But we're looking at a time of year when things and attentions all combine, and so we're harvesting those materials that for many cultures need the byproducts from, the oats and the wheat and the seeds for food sources. So if we consider what perennials and what materials, biennials, whatever, we can add to our own gardens and how they contribute to the circular nature of things, we want to consider strongly perennials and biennials and so forth versus the heavy drinking annuals. They require a lot of food and a lot of water for maintaining optimal growth to produce and perform. And they can be a strain on some of the resources that we now have to consider seriously when we are approaching our design work and what we actually are working with and their role in the global economy and the survival of our species. And the grasses are uncelebrated materials, I think, and offer so much punch for very little pound. So there's a lot of sort of commercial value in the grasses and how they can carry such a big footprint in a design work, play such a major role in it, and in this case contrasting with the very architectural gladiolas that normally will steal the show at any competition. But the grasses are holding their own here, and they're doing so because I've chosen to present them the way they present themselves in nature, in the garden, and I'm trying to cluster them heavily so that you get a sense and a feel of what this plant material is all about. Good design, I think, and if we're talking about competitions or anything like that, festivals and exhibitions, I think one of the goals that we as florists or floral designers have is to present materials in such a way that the viewers will look at it and say, wow, that's amazing. I need to know more about that gladiola and that color. Or what is that grass? What are those cute little things that are dangling about that harken back to my childhood, you know? This design could be a sympathy design, a modern sympathy work, and presented in such a dramatic but simple way that the person intended for it, I think, would smile and say, hey, you captured my spirit. I'm a fiery little woman that really enjoys nature and just taking a roll in the hay. So consider how you work with your traditionally normalized materials like gladiola for sympathy, but give it a modern twist and go bold and reference that person, say in your sympathy work or in your celebrations of milestones like birthdays and so forth. I think the big lesson here for me when I finish sort of this one side of this work is I'm always trying to work with the personality of the flowers. If you notice this work, most people tend to green up their floral designs first, but for me, I prefer going right in and grabbing as much real estate for those big, bold forms, as in this case, the gladiolas. I put those in first, and then I green up afterwards. It's reverse, and it's the way I've always done it. It helps me strategize on the placements and reduce the need for additional plant material because I am strategically positioning them. And rather than starting with a big green clump, which is not my intention, I'm starting with already carved negative space. I've sculpted out negative space to introduce these oats via the strategic placement of the dahlias. I mean, I'm sorry, of the gladiolas. The dahlias are another topic. I tried growing them, but I had to battle the animals in the garden. But these glads definitely have established the form and shape of this design. And I'm working, and what I'm seeing is I was looking for a beautiful triangular, traditional kind of shape with personality in between. And the oats are providing that. So in the end, really, it's the eye of the beholder decides what they see when they look at something, whether it's leaves in the breeze and what that means in terms of the cooler nights and shorter days ahead, or right down to what value and what glory can I bring to this unopened stem of gladiola, and where am I going to position it? I'm working with the plant material. I'm not abstracting with wires. You don't see me forcing the materials. I want them to be able to just nestle freely side by side in a creation and speak to each other, because it's all about the conversation around a work, whether that work is a sculpture in the middle of Paris or something you created on the coffee table while you were watching the news. Sort of the genesis of creation and what guidelines we give ourselves is important, and how we relate to nature and the materials we're working with is a question we all need to ask ourselves. But in the end, it's all about the flowers.